Good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And this is a shout out to Koos, who drew this information to my attention. And I've talked at some length about how conflicted the judicial system is in South Africa, where you get these incredible judgments, and some of them seem to be race-based judgments, like those two guys who were involved in that infamous coffin case. One getting 19 years and the other one getting 15 years, where they didn't even hurt the African guy. They were just trying to scare him. And you take Oscar Pistorius. He got effectively 6 years behind bars compared to for murdering his girlfriend. And you compare that to just putting someone in a coffin to scare them and getting 19 years. You can see how completely ridiculous the justice system in South Africa is. And it's getting worse because within the actual process of picking a judge, the politicians get involved. And of course they have their own agenda, don't they? Judge John Schlopey of the Western Cape High Court remains under a shadow of judicial misconduct accusations that date back a decade and involve an alleged attempt to influence judges dealing with the Jacob Zuma arms deal case. National Assembly Speaker Thandi Modise is embroiled in an ongoing court case relating to alleged animal cruelty at Modise's Northwest Farm in 2014, and that is thanks to AfriForum, because the police were going to do nothing about it. EFF leader Julius Malema faces charges of common assault and illegally discharging a firearm, and is highly likely to find himself in front of the courts on further charges in future, notably when the Hawks investigation into VBS Mutual Bank are completed. Schlopey, Modise and Malema are all part of the team with responsibility for recommending who South Africa's president should appoint as judges, namely the 23-member Judicial Services Commission, or JSC. In the case of Judge Schlopey, he is still listed on the JSC website as occupying the place reserved for a sitting judge president. Schlopey is indeed judge president of the Western Cape High Court, but complaints about his involvement in the JSC have seen him absent himself from recent proceedings. As recently as October 2018, however, Schlopey was still participating on the JSC, thereby raising serious conflict of interest questions, as it is the JSC that must recommend whether or not he should be impeached for gross misconduct. Schlopey's is perhaps the most overt case of potential conflict of interest on the JSC, but judicial watchdog Judges Matter argues that even the presence of commissioners embroiled in ongoing litigation, such as Modise and Malema, is questionable. Says Alison Tiley, coordinator of Judges Matter. It becomes problematic when you have politicians who are regularly in the courts selecting the judges. In the case of Malema, for instance, Tiley says, in the past, he has quite openly asked candidates for legal opinions on matters in which he is involved. I don't think that's okay. Modise is the first Speaker of Parliament to similarly serve as a JSC member. This is permissible in terms of law, but has raised questions as to how she will manage the JSC role in tandem with the prodigious workload required for the Speaker. Modise missed her most recent court date in June 2019 in connection with the animal cruelty charges. Tilly suggests a certain level of probity should be required of JSC members. He said, if you're going to appoint judicial officers, you yourself should be able to meet the unimpeachable standards you're appointing to. In addition to the three commissioners mentioned, a new JSC member, ANC Council for Provinces, or NCOP, MP China Dodovu, was arrested in 2013 and charged with the murder of a regional ANC leader in the Northwest, David Chikya. Doduva maintained his innocence, saying the charges were politically motivated, and was acquitted in 2014. Former Northern Cape Premier Sylvia Lucas also sits on the JSC as a representative of the NCOP, Lucas was found guilty of hate speech and unfair discrimination by the Equality Court in 2015 after using the word hotnot in a 2010 speech. Well, I can think of some far worse things that have been said by people like Malema. Anyway, the JSC is made up of the Chief Justice, the Minister of Justice, 2 further judges, 4 attorneys and advocates, a law professor, 4 persons designated by the President, normally lawyers, 6 members of the National Assembly, and 4 members of the NCOP. Tilly says the question of whether there are too many politicians on the JSC comes up a lot on the continent, where surprise is expressed at the heavy political weighting of the Commission. Tilly said, in most jurisdictions, judges appoint judges. What we did coming out of apartheid and having to basically reconstitute the bench, which we have done, there are no judges now who were judges under apartheid, was that we needed a bunch of people committed to transformation, and it couldn't be assumed that the previous crop of judges fitted the bill. One of the issues now is that the only instruction in law for the composition of the JSC relates to the bodies from which members should be drawn. There are no articulated criteria for commissioners beyond this, nothing clear to guide the National Assembly, for instance, when the body decides which members to nominate to the JSC. As a result, says Tilly, questions put to judge candidates are now often broadly about political issues rather than judicial performance per se. Although ANC figures dominate the political composition of the JSC, allowance is made for 3 opposition representatives from the National Assembly. Currently, the DA's Glynis Breitenbach, the IFP's Naren Singh, and the EFF's Julius Chameleon Malema. There's a plot twist, however. Also sitting on the JSC as one of the 2 advocates representing the bar is Dali Mpofu. Mpofu is well-regarded silk, but is also the EFF's national chairperson. Tilly said, Mpofu clearly has a political position. What you end up with is effectively 2 EFF representatives. Malema's line of questioning at the JSC has raised eyebrows in the past. He has quizzed candidates about white supremacy and the Indian question, but has also praised for rigorous and committed participation. Now, I've actually got a video way back in the archives of Malema cross-examining a potential judge, and that's exactly what he was doing in that video. It's quite extraordinary to watch. Journalist Naren Tulsi wrote in 2018 that Malema had blossomed into one of the intellectual leaders at the JSC, to the point that his presence and his questions have challenged his colleagues to sharpen their own minds in understanding why they are there and the seriousness of the job the Constitution requires of them in sifting out judges for appointment. The JSC has not sat since Malema's controversial comments in July, alleging capture of the judiciary. South Africa be warned, said Malema, in response to a judgment that he and his party violated sections of the Riotous Assemblies Act. Something is happening to the judiciary, Malema said. Something wrong is happening to the judiciary. In October, the JSC will sit in Midrand to select candidates for recommendations to fill 17 empty positions on the bench. It will be intriguing to see how Malema's newfound skepticism towards the judiciary manifests itself in his questions to candidates, and whether the freshly constituted JSC can be considered to have fulfilled a mandate that nobody is entirely clear on. Well, politicians should not be involved in the election of judges. I mean, that's a simple answer to the whole question. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, and above all, be safe.